Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your story as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us. So today we are interviewing Rick Carlson. He's a friend of mine. At least I consider him a friend since we've done the coaching training together. And he also gave his testimony at Celebrate Recovery. So I'm going to hand it over to Rick and let him introduce himself.
Kevin, it's great to be with you today. Thank you very much. It's an honor to talk with you today, and it's been an honor to get to know you over the last several months. And thank you for your example of this podcast and how that helps people and gives many courage to heal, right? And reach into themselves and find peace and ongoing healing. So that has helped me as well. I am a recovery and support pastor at my church. I have been on the journey of sobriety from addictions for 12 years, and I've been in full-time ministry, part-time ministry since 2016. In 2018, I entered full-time ministry. So at my church, I do organic coaching, soon to be more structured, and offer that as another wholeness pathway of healing. I oversee all of our wholeness ministries at our church. And so that's a lot of hurting people that are diving into vulnerability and transparency in different environments and finding what God can do for them. So it's a pretty exciting, it's a calling of mine, the opposite of where my life was 12 years ago. So I was not planning on doing this in life. And I also part of Husband Material, that is a ministry for men only that digs into sexual brokenness, like the impact and the bondage, if you will, from porn. And it's a ministry that goes deeper beyond that behavior and discovers why men use porn, but what is really missing in their lives. So I have the honor of being a coach on a part-time basis and contributing to that ministry. And I'm very honored to be part of that because it has had a big impact in my life for the last 2 years.
You've been a part of Husband Material for 2 years now?
Right. I was a participant for a little over a year and a half. My introduction to Husband Material kind of came unexpectedly for me. I was leading a men's group in an environment almost 2 years ago, and God kind of spoke to me and said, it's time for you to dig into your sexual brokenness, and you need to find a way to do that. And it scared the heck out of me. But I knew I needed to take a step. So I went on the internet because I didn't know how to handle that because of the fear factor, because there was so much that happened in my life. And I was just, to be honest with you, I was petrified and I didn't want to get into it. And I thought I would be judged and probably misplaced in life because I had so much junk inside that I just didn't know how to get out. So I discovered Husband Material. I decided to join it. And what happened with that ministry for me, it gave me permission to go deep into the core of myself without feeling shame, right? And speak on some things and address them very specifically and intentionally and begin to call these things out and release them because I had locked them up and buried them and basically tried to act in life that they didn't exist. But yet it was the core of my being and it impacted all of my decisions in life for decades. And so it gave me incredible freedom, healing. I'm still healing. I'm still in that process. Would I say I'm totally recovered from some of the traumas and things that happened? I'm still healing. I think that's fair to say. But I have freedom in my life. And that was one of the most intelligent choices I made to join Husband Material in my life. God has directed me to a lot of intelligent choices because, I made a lot of, I would say, some stupid decisions quite often in life. So when he gets involved, it's a much brighter situation.
We always say freedom is on the other side of fear, and I love it that you faced your fear to do that. And I just want to chime in. I consider Rick a friend of mine too.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about Rick is he kind of shared a little dream with us about listening to his transistor radio and being a DJ. And I just want to say, Rick, you have a great voice, and I hope you will consider doing something because you do have so much to give. And that's why we wanted you to come and share your story. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
So if you're comfortable, why don't you give us a little background history of where your story begins?
Well, I was born 6 decades ago, right? So I'm reaching that old factor, right? But actually, the last 12 years of my life have been the best years of my life. It's incredible. I think I'm going to continue to be strong in that and live out the existing days of my life in total awesomeness. It's pretty humbling, and I'm so grateful. I had a unique beginning in my life. My beginnings began very rough. My mom was in a very tough situation in her life. She was basically had left her marriage, I think, that was abusive. And to get away from that, she moved from one state clear many states away and took her her 2 sons with her to get away from her husband. In that time frame, she met a man who kind of charmed her, and they began dating. And what happened next is she became pregnant, and then he announced that his wife was pregnant or having a baby as well, had just had a baby. And so obviously the world turned upside down, and I think that she was crushed. And I wouldn't want to be in her shoes at that time. That must have been a crushing blow to be in that situation. I have so much compassion for her these days for where she was at. My father abandoned my mom and obviously me, and he left the state and disappeared. 2 months later, I believe toward the end of the 6th month of pregnancy, my mom, in a moment of some tragic feelings and hurt and whatever was going on, she unfortunately decided to attempt to take her own life. And that caused some major injuries in the womb. Then I was born. I had more complications at birth, and I'm born at 2 pounds, and I was not ever supposed to walk. So things were bleak, and it was tough. I learned how to walk for the first time at 4 years of age, started wearing braces. So as a young kid, a young child, with all that, things became rather difficult for me. But we were a family that didn't voice our concerns or feelings or weren't taught that. Everything kind of looked okay on the outside, and we smiled. That's the way we were. I struggled on the inside. I was pretty strong on the outside physically, right? Because you couldn't knock me down. A lot of things happened, and I went through some bullying, got made fun of a lot. I was kind of isolated, felt alone, but I never had a voice and never knew how to communicate that. So that just layered up. I was not in special classes or anything like that, but I was alone all the time. And so that was my childhood. It was a blended family that we had a total of 7 children when everything blended together and the years went on. But I was always alone and isolated and felt like I didn't matter. And that's how I started in my life. That was the beginning of my life. And I didn't really have friends, and I felt rejected often because that's just what I wore on me. So that was probably the first 9 years of my life that I distinctly remember. So there was a lot of heartbreak and not understanding what my body was about, why I was in this position, and was never really communicated to me for some reason.
So you weren't told what had happened when you were born as far as
this is correct.
Why you were handicapped.
Right. Yeah.
And studies now show things that happen in the womb, babies can feel that pain and rejection. Right. And just, I know when I first heard this part of your story, I'm going to admit I cried because I had gotten to know you, and it just to think of all that you went through, it's just really hard. And yet I see the man that you are and the work that you've done, and it's so impressive. So that was up to 9.
Right. And then there was a kind of a turning point that made me want to shut down at 9 years old, 10 years old. And there were some things that happened. A relative basically told me the truth of the biological beginnings, and basically planted this thing in my mind and my heart. And for whatever reason, I still don't understand to this day, but the dad that's raising us, he's not our dad. Your dad doesn't. He left. And basically, you were a mistake and you are not loved. And that stayed with me and became my mantra at that age. And I just shut down inside. Okay. So I wasn't loved. No one cared about me. Plus, I'm different physically, so I'm not wanted. And so I just didn't know how to reach out to people and have that capacity to voice what I was feeling and thinking. It just wasn't set up that way for me. And there were some things in that time frame as well that contributed to me shutting down. And that's when there were some abuse things that happened by a person in the circle of my life that was a abuse sexually in nature. And I had to be part of something and witness and participate in something with someone else that just hurt me to the core. And I didn't know how to process. I'm 9, 10 years old, and I didn't know what was happening. And I was sworn to secrecy. That was kind of our MO, sworn to secrecy. Well, just like at 9 years old, when I was told about the beginnings, I was sworn to secrecy. I was sworn to secrecy in this situation as well. It made me shut down even more. And I had no idea how to process it. And I thought that it was all my fault. Later in early middle school years, or somewhere in that time zone, there was another situation with another person that things happened, and it confused me even more. And again, secrecy seemed to be the key to whatever. You can't talk about these things. In our family, we just did not open up about certain things. We were never given that permission. And that's just the way that is. So you have those things going on, those abusive situations, and not understanding. It actually led me to when I was in 6th grade to have my first drink and my first taste of drugs. And I found comfort in that at a young age, because guess what? It made my pain go away.
Yeah, it works good.
Right? At least I thought. And so it just stuck my pain even further and down. And there was no place else to hide it, but I hid it. So I just kept all that inside me. And I stayed isolated. I was a loner. I was nice to people, but inside I was in a different world. I sought out people to be friends. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be loved. But something inside of me from these things that were happening to me, I didn't feel like I could be loved. I was this dirty, dirty person. And that I was just like what they say, a POS. I'll leave it there. You know what I mean? And that's what I began to truly believe in myself. And it ate at me. And anytime, it was like I had to live 2 lives. I was living this nice, perfect life on the outside, trying to do the right things to please people because I just wanted people to care about me. But inside, it was like a cancer that was eating me up. So, yeah, my addictions, chemical addictions and stuff led right through middle school, high school. Then it came in full flare at the age of 18, 19. Then I went totally into it. And yeah, it took me down a lot of rough roads. I didn't want people to touch me. I didn't know how. I couldn't stand people to touch me on the shoulder. I couldn't, even if they touched my hand, I would shut down. That's the way I felt. And it was a constant thing. And people would come up and they would be affectionate. Sometimes I would run.
That was a trigger for you?
Very much so. And that trigger stayed with me for decades, a real trigger. And then something happened at 1920, and I won't get into the details of this, but in a alcohol-infused situation, I was accosted. And that was pretty traumatic, but I kept it inside me. Became an expert of the secrets. And then on top of that, I had to cover up the secrets that covered up the secrets that covered up the secrets.
Yeah. So you're coping by drugs and alcohol, but did you experience religion when you were younger, or what led you to religion?
That's an interesting question. We had it kind of splintered in at times in our childhood. I think that in that family dynamics, it was kind of off and on. I think the principles of Christianity were always there and presented, but we went to different churches, and sometimes it was on, sometimes it was off. So my concept of God he was just a bully. And so that I had to be a people pleaser, so I'm going to act good, but it was the opposite of who I was inside. And then I went through a kind of a religious, in my search of whatever that is out there. I went through when I was a young adult, a very bizarre religious experience that was rather, I would say, like a sect. I wanted to be loved, and that didn't turn out very well. So what happened, I just chose at that time in my early 20s that God was a bully. He was out to get me and ruin my life, and I wanted nothing to do with him. and I chose to be agnostic, and then I went into atheism, and then stayed in that form. I may have gone to church a couple times, always went for weddings and funerals, but you don't have to connect with God there, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of how it went. And I actually took a pathway of kind of like Saul and the Paul type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was against Christians, and I expressed my hatred to Christians often, and would be very belligerent and angry. And although I was kind of like total liberal and out there all the way on that, because anything went as far as I went, but when it came to Christians, I was up in their face. Often just trying to belittle them and bring them down because of my hurt and my pain and my perception of what Christianity was all about. So that's where I landed in that process for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And people tried to get me to come to God, but you know what? I beat them back with a baseball bat, metaphorically speaking. Right?
So what was the turning point? Like, I think of people that I know that I love how well you said that you made God the enemy, like it was his fault. And I know people like that are still in addiction, and I pray for them. I actually pray for the angels in heaven to fight for their soul, because I don't know how to reach them. But it gives me so much hope. You don't even know. I don't know if you know this, Rick, but my son is on the streets. I'm going to cry. And it gives me so much hope to know that you somewhere, somehow, something happened. So I can't wait to hear this part of your story.
This, as far as connecting to God and the reality of what God was, it was pretty incredible. And I love sharing this part of my story. You know, I had gone through 5 different drug rehabs and been through this and that and this and that. And I was just going to drink and do drugs till the day I died. And if I woke up the next day, the only thing I had going for me was my job and my career. And I did very well at that. And I had become a sophisticated drinker. And only downgraded to pot. I had let go of all the hard drugs and I thought that was a pretty good deal. And I had arrived, but I was a very somewhat functioning alcoholic and drug user at that time. So I scheduled everything. And this is important to the turnaround. Let's say I got off at 5:30 p.m. I knew by 6:15 my first drink would be, and I scheduled everything out. And so I was pleased with myself, and I thought I had it all together. But all I lived for, my purpose was to live for every partying moment, right? So one particular weekend, I had friends that I considered kind of like family, because at that time I was very distant from my family. I went to their house on a Friday, so went to just partied all weekend. I lived it hard, played hard, and stayed intoxicated all weekend. And Sunday morning rolls around, and I had known them for a long time. And they woke me up and said, "Would you like to go to church?" And what came out of my mouth, I can't say on this podcast, okay?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
Okay. Here's the deal. It was pretty incredible. I drove myself there because they just kept saying, "Will you come to church?" And so they went early, and I sat in my car, chain smoking one cigarette after another, thinking I cannot go in this church. Not at all. First of all, they're going to look at the way I walk. They're going to judge me, right? They're going to look down on me, and they're going to be just like all the rest of the Christians that I had known in my life. And I'm not saying that every Christian was like that, but the majority of my perception, general perception. Anyway, they came. One of them came out and knocked on the window. "When are you going to come in? How long does this last?" I know it's going to last an hour. I'm just trying to find one way to get out of there. So dragged me in there. And after the church service, was a brand new church that was 3 weeks old, and it had a couple 100 to 300 people in there. And after they asked me questions, "How did you like it?" I said, "I'm not impressed." "Will you ever come back?" "No, thank you. And don't ask me." So a few weeks later, I was back at their house, and guess what? They dragged me to church again. And they were working on me without ever saying anything. So that went on 3 or 4 months. And then that was in October of 2010. And then in January, my friends got really tricky. And if you know, they were doing small group signups, and it was the first ones ever in that church. And they had these donuts and bougie pastries and things. And I said, yeah, if I were to go drink some Kool-Aid, but I was being very sarcastic, I would go to that table, because those over there, those dessert type things or whatever, those look really good. They went in over there, came back and said, "We signed you up for this group." What the heck? okay, I'm gonna see how this rolls. So I went, and on the third week, I said, no, this is not for me. I need to find a way to get out of here. People were never rude to me, but I can't handle this. This is not my gig. And I need to continue in my life, in my journey of working, drinking, and doing drugs. You know what I'm saying? And so I hatched up a plan. This is total truth. There was this restroom in the home, in the front. And I said, if I can go in there and make some noise, they won't notice I went in there. And then I can sneak right outside the door, the front door, and I'll disappear forever. Snuck out of the bathroom, put my hand on the door, and this gentleman yells out, "Where's Rick?" Well, obviously it wasn't God's voice. And I knew whose voice it was. It was the lead pastor of this church. He wasn't the leader of that group. And he walks up to me and asks me 3 questions. Why are you so angry with God? And I backed up. Oh, don't get up in my business, right? And it was triggering me. And he goes, and then he asked me the second question. You're looking and searching for God, aren't you? Uh-oh. No, you just crossed the line, buddy, right? And I let him know I was converted. It wasn't going very nicely. And then he asked the third question. So have you ever really let God into your life and asked him into your heart and let him become part of your life? And I looked at him and I said, don't ever talk to me again. I'm not buying what you're selling. And I stormed out the door. My friends had already left this group. I drove over to their house, busted in their front door. I cussed them out. I cussed the preacher, or the pastor rather, and his wife, the church, and anybody I can think of. And I said, if you ever drag me into this BS again, you'll never be talking to me in life. And I drove home very angry. Well, I struggled for 5 days. In the middle of the night, I would wake up thinking about this. That following Friday morning, I woke up and I knew a change would happen that day. I just knew something was shifting. And it was pretty incredible for me. So I said, well, I can kind of get religious here. And I sat down in the chair and I kind of said the Lord's Prayer and, something like that. And God just kind of said to me, nudged me, that's not what I want from you. Oh, crap, right? And guess what happened? For me, it happens different for everyone, but I fell to my knees. And for the longest time, I told God exactly what I thought of him. I let some things out. I told him he had screwed up my life, that he was a piece of crap. And I just went down this list and I kept letting it out. And guess what happened? We made an agreement together at the end of that conversation. He asked me, not in an audible voice, but I knew what he was asking me. Will you live for me? And I said, yes. That was on February 11th of 2011. And my life radically changed from that point, right? And that's when my sobriety journey began on that day too, incidentally. And then what happened next is within 7-8 months, I was living down in that area. I moved and chose an hour plus commute to work one way to be part of this church, be part of that journey because I had to be part of this. And that began the process of the reality of Jesus being in my life. And I had to rewire my brain and to rewire my heart. And it took a couple of years for things to process about God and work some things out about God. I had to push the reset button, right? And that's how that began. But he provided incredible people to walk alongside me. And then I became involved. I started leading share groups. This unlikely person, the radical one, the crazy one, right? And I would get all the what we say the hard cases. So it was crazy. That's how my reality of Jesus in my life started in my life. So boy,
man, your friends, I want to give them a badge. How many times do we try to talk somebody into
right,
bring them to church and we're like, one no, they give us one no and we stop, and your friends are like,
right.
We'll try donuts, we'll try money, we'll try kudos to them.
Yes.
But guess what? Had that not happened, I would not be on this earth today. So a lot of restoration started for me on that date. I just didn't see it coming, and began a lot of little steps. There were so many little yeses that capitalized to the big yeses. And I learned that's the key in my life. Don't worry about the big yeses, because you keep saying yes in the little ones. That's what gets you there in the first place. It's a lifestyle, not these big yeses, you land well. Yeah. So I stayed with the church. And I stayed with that long commute. And what happens when you follow God, a lot of times what happens to us, then what hits the fan, right? So a lot of things hit the fan. just a lot of things. And I stayed true to what I knew I was supposed to be doing. And eventually that led me to a calling in full-time ministry.
Mm.
And I was worried, because I didn't, in my mind, I didn't have the look and I wasn't young enough. I was the old guy and, in a younger culture and things, but God called me to walk with broken people. And I had the opportunity a few years ago to start up some ministries that specialized in walking with broken people. And I fit right in. And it's been a beautiful journey as far as all that's concerned. And then I left a career of 22 years, right? A job. And I took that risk. And man, what a rewarding risk that has been. It's not about me, but I know why I get up every day. And it doesn't always look pretty. And it's difficult, very difficult sometimes. And anything that could hit me seems to hit me. But I know that I am supposed to be an agent of healing, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
My opportunity is to walk with people, lead people, and help them discover healing in Jesus. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And that takes on a lot of different details, a lot of different responsibilities, but that's the foundation of what I get to do. And if Jesus can continue to heal me, then I know that he can heal others. It is
I
true.
think that that's what's so beautiful about your story is that journey. Like sometimes we just want to be healed like that. And, I know for some people that does happen, but for you, it was a step and then another step and then you learning, you being willing to be open and being willing to say yes, because, especially right now, I feel like we're in a pretty apathetic culture.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
the fact that you say yes and take another step and even signing up for the coaching class. I mean, seriously, you're already a coach, but you said yes and you wanted to learn more. And we all were blessed by knowing you.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could play the audio of how much everybody loved Rick, but it gives me so much hope to see that it is a journey and a process. And the biggest thing that I think I'm hearing from your story is that we can trust the process.
And you have to trust the processor.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the process, trust the processor. I will go back to 2016. The lead pastor at the church that I am humbly part of in ministry shared a portion of my story, which then it was presented just enough details to because I guess I was making an impact. So my story was becoming visible. So people are curious. They want to know what happened to you. So I shared some very careful details of my story, but not any vulnerable stuff at that time. You can be transparent, but vulnerability is a totally different aspect. When you merge those together, that's where your real story of healing becomes a reality or presented even deeper. He shared some things and I went home that day because part of the story was some of my physical difficulties were shared. And I was scared about how that would turn out. I went home and begged God that afternoon, please heal me. I've had enough with this physical stuff. I don't think I can take this anymore. And interesting enough, God communicated to me and said, no. Really, God? We're back to you being a bully? This is how I talk to God, right?
I love it.
And it hurt my feelings. But he also said, I want to use you just the way you are. Can you handle it? This always makes me emotional every single time I share this part, because that was the real shift in the change where I began to open up and give of myself. It wasn't an external thing anymore. It wasn't based on any gifts or talents or potential. I started to share, and my love for people, compassion was born out of that moment. It changed. So my hurt and my pain and what I've been through can actually help other people. Man, that was a responsibility, and I took that on. Things changed in front of me. Windows opened, doors opened. I looked at people different, and that was the foundation. And it still sticks with me today. Kind of began to lose some of the shame, the physical and the emotional scars that brought. And I began to actually be proud of my physical walking. Like, man, I'm kind of a stud now, right? And I got this because people, instead of me being ashamed, it became a gift to people. Wow. And I wanted to be a gift to people all my life. And finally, in the right context, in the right opportunity, I was willing to do that. It was incredible. That's healing. And so that still stays with me today.
Will you say that again? First you said transparent, then you said vulnerable.
Vulnerability. Yeah.
Can you just talk around that a little? Because that was pretty powerful.
Well, years ago, I was able to be transparent in some of the details of my story, but I didn't have the capacity at that time to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference, do you think? Like,
Well, you can share details and open up a little bit.
mm-hmm.
However, if you're not willing to share how it really makes you feel or think or hurt you, when you merge those two together,
Wow.
that's what people are really looking for.
Wow.
They want someone to share with them from a genuine place.
So you
Right.
can be transparent
Often,
and
yes.
still hide a little.
Oh, I hid a lot. You bet.
Interesting.
Right.
That's really interesting.
And I think that was also born out of my upbringing and, hiding all my life because I'm so ashamed. But there was power. Like you say, it's powerful when you merge those together, and it became wow. And then you have to test it out because it doesn't happen everywhere. You just can't walk up and be transparent and vulnerable and everywhere you go, right? And some
We just
people
did a whole
misunderstood
podcast
it.
about
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That does not work, right?
I had experienced what you call trauma dumping recently, and
Right.
it can, you do have to be careful. Now, I want to just ask you, when God told you he wanted to use you, do you feel like that's when you realized God accepted you the way you were?
Yeah. For the very first time, almost like he thought I was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that he was choosing me specifically. We're all chosen to do different things. But this was like, wow, this can become something beautiful instead of something that destroyed me. One of the big things that destroyed me all my life. And man, talk about redemptive risk, right? Oof. Yeah. I don't recommend it for everyone. But
again, it shows the power of your story, even on levels. Like the first level, maybe you weren't being totally authentic, but it mattered. And then when you went deeper, that's when your life changed and the people's lives around you changed. And again, the power is so incredible.
Yeah. So it's been a gradual healing process in my life. And we've all heard about the onion, and I use this all the time, and they hate it in the environments I share it with. But I believe in the onion process. You have to peel back layers at a time, and you can take your time because we can't handle if you just rip it all out. We're not humanly capable of handling that, right? But we have a God that does walk with us, and he wants us. I think if it was intended to be all healed, then we wouldn't trust him. We wouldn't need him. That's just my thought on that. So as you open the layers and have the ability, but you have to be willing to go there. You have to be willing to go there. And then you have to put the right people around you in those seasons to help you peel back those layers and hold you accountable to the process. And the deeper that you get to the core, the messier it gets.
I think that's true for all of us. Yes.
Right.
That's because that's what we've stuffed down the hardest.
Right. And after a while, our minds are pretty powerful. We don't even always remember what we stuffed down. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I joined Husband Material, I thought that I would just read some good literature or watch some podcast, but they have this academy side, which I joined that side as well, which made me dig. Oh man, it hurt. And I did, but I was wanting to. And then I was part of a specialized small group for 3 months. And what happened was God placed me in online with people that I met later on in person that accepted me with all my junk. And there was like no judging. So I tested the process. Okay, I'm ripping some layers way down deep, and I'm going to throw it out at you. And the response was remarkable. And then I trust in you. And guess what happened? I began to heal. This is where some of this healing from the sexual brokenness began. And it went deep. And I cried deeply for the first time in my life. A year and a half ago, I could not stop crying, and it just kept pouring out of me over days and over weeks. And it was tough because when you think the tears, there's no more tears to come out. They just kept coming out. But I knew that Jesus was healing me. But that was the perfect environment and for Husband Material, because I was getting to the core of what was destroying me. Abuse, hating my body, not feeling loved, thinking that I was worth crap. That's what I was living with. And So that's the beauty of husband material. So I will always give kudos to that ministry because it gave me permission to go there. That was the beauty of it. And I guess you could choose not to, but I chose to go with permission. And it was incredible. Such an incredible platform of safety and confidentiality and authenticity that is so needed. And knowing that men around you are craving the same thing. You know, their details are different. So incredible opportunity of healing. I didn't see that one coming, but it was at the perfect timing in my life. So I'm coming out of that. And as far as still healing and still working it through, but also gives me credibility in coaching and working with people and in ministry overall, because I come from a real place of understanding, experience. And then on top of that, of course, you go through many levels of training so that you can adequately minister, coach, and pastor and be that leader for people that they're looking for. So praises to husband material for sure. I often wonder why it took so long.
I think you talked about the layers, because sometimes I think that I'm like, why am I just learning this now? Mm-hmm. But again, you know, the deeper the hurt, the more severe as a child, the more the harder we've protected it. So we've built a really tough core around it, or, you know, shell around it. And, but I just think you're so brave, for being willing to share your story as well as dig deeper and find a safe place to do that. Because I think especially for men, that's even sometimes churches are not a safe place if a man has an issue that they could be judged for. And even when Kevin, I say this all the time, when Kevin was going to share his testimony, I was very protective. You know, his wife, Charnel, is my best friend. And I just was like, I don't know, because if anybody tries to say you can't work with our kids because you were abused, they're going to have to fight me. And that didn't happen, but he was very brave to be willing to share his story. So
I'm not ashamed of my story now. I think that's so key in my journey. Again, I don't walk around just, hey, let me just tell you everything, because that's just not appropriate, right? My church is very genuine, and we offer so much because the church was built for those that are really broken. So we get the very broken. It's pretty awesome. But in these very deep issues, sometimes you need a different kind of opportunity, especially to learn to go deeper. And it translates back into the work that I get to do on a daily basis. My coaching link is comebackcoaching.org. You like that?
Comeback coaching.
I love it. Do you have it yet?
It's up. Yeah, comebackcoaching.org. So I think that Lori, I know that you said to coach well, you got to be coached well, right? So it's kind of like in the healing journey as well, right? The same concept exists, the same principle. To walk with people towards healing, you've got to have gone down some of the same journey of healing yourself, and people gravitate towards that. And that's the beauty of our stories.
Yeah,
it's funny. When our coaching started, the course started, I was very gravitated towards you, Rick, because I've just felt this calmness, this peace about you, and like I said, I felt you were the wise man on the hill. and then when I saw your testimony with Celebrate Recovery, I just was shocked, because I was so amazed at what you had gone through, and yet you are this image of just peace and serenity and generosity, and I was astonished. I would never have expected that. But I think, like you said, hurt people hurt people, but healed people heal others. And that's what I immediately felt from you in our class, was this is someone who has this aura of being a healer. And it just shows how much you've gone through, but also how much healing has been there. So yeah.
Again, that's a choice that we have to make.
Not always easy. It really isn't, to peel those layers and to go there. I recently had another, doing this podcast. I thought I was ready for it. And it's brought up some surprises and some issues and things I didn't even realize that were still issues. And yet it's, I believe, a lifelong process, just like being transformed by Christ is a lifelong process. It's a journey.
And we need people to accomplish this, right? You can't do it alone. There's no way you can heal by yourself, or you can overcome the impact and influence of whatever category of abuse that we've gone through, or whatever we've gone through, whatever our story is. to heal, you don't do it alone. You know, when you go to a hospital, I recently went through life-changing surgery. And I'll share this that makes the way I walk and things. It's totally different. So I'm in the middle of that recovery. I had that in November. So there just wasn't one surgeon. There was two surgeons. There was a team. There was a medical team in the surgery. There was like 17 nurses and medical people coming in all night after surgery, attending to me, right?
Yeah.
Why so many people? I'm just trying to sleep. I need to heal. Leave me alone, right? But guess what? I even had to move to a friend's house so that they could take care of me, which was a big pride buster for me. But I needed them because they were willing to walk with me. And then when I was able to get out of the wheelchair in January, guess what? People came to my place and set things up. They're walking with me. I can't heal alone. And that took I was resistant to that, you know, in this physical healing journey. And I'm in intense rehab now to learn how to walk brand new. The whole team cheers me on. It's a community effort. You know what I'm saying? But I participate with them. You know what I mean? It's all part of the thing. So we don't heal alone. It doesn't work. And that's the beauty of what Jesus provides. He uses people.
Yeah.
And I think we have that where we want to. We want to isolate. And, you know, I just lost a friend and still really hard for me because we loved her. This woman was so loved. And had she called any one of us, none of us knew what was going on. And she went to a hotel and died alone. And it's so sad. And, but we want to do that. It's hard. It's really hard to ask for help. It's hard to reach out. But yet when we do, it's beautiful. Like you said, they're all celebrating you. How awesome is that?
Guess what? I'm celebrating with them, right? And I'm allowing my story with them because it's pretty awesome because they get to see the results. And guess what? It gives all the other people in the rehab environment, it encourages them as well. So our story, as we carefully share it in real time, changes lives. And sometimes you don't even know the hope it brings people just by them watching or just being that kind, compassionate person in the moment, just living out your healing. People are constantly looking for healing. We represent it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm in such a better place in my life that I look forward to sharing things. I look forward to giving people hope. I love sitting down with people and just looking them right in the face. Let's talk. Let's figure this thing out. I'm going to love you right where you're at. Guess what? Jesus loves me right where I'm at, and people have loved me right where I'm at. And I've had some pretty ugly scars to be loved. You know what I mean? And scars can be pretty cool, right? Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I have a face full of stitches, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say is, especially for men, it's hard to get to that place of asking for help. For one thing, because, you know, we're men, and so we're taught to be proud, and, you know, that pride stops us. But also, I know if men don't want to be a burden. And I know for you, I'm just wondering if, you know, you felt like you were a burden in your life, and if that stopped you from seeking help because of that.
Well, for me, I think it was a couple things. And I'll tie it back to how you shared men feel like they are a burden. I didn't think I mattered.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be seen as weak. I didn't want to be noticed as, well, oh, you have emotions. And I didn't want to be judged with all this junk, right? That I thought I would be minimized as a man.
Yeah.
If I really started getting some of the stuff out of, you know, from the deep places, right? And here I am advocating in different environments and helping others do it. But it was so difficult for me to get there myself. And I could draw it out of people. And that's a gift I have that's been given by God but he requires me to do the same thing. So I had to dive in. I had to dive into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
And just go there. And I think it's a pride issue with men.
It's hard to ask for help because we're taught to stand on our own 2 feet.
Right.
We're taught to take care of everyone else.
Right. And I think that's a lie in our brain that's been fed to us over and over and over again. And I found that in my journey that people actually respect me because my strength looks different. This is something that I discovered. I've never been able to physically lift heavy items or, was never mechanical. And I can't even, give me directions how to build something. I get really confused. I can't move rocks, all these big, heavy, duty things, but my strength shines through in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it does shine through.
Right.
Yeah.
And I learned to accept that and kind of embrace that for lack of a better word. Right. I embrace that and go, this is a legacy, and it's pretty honorable, pretty humbling. And I stay grateful for that, because my strength is, it just didn't work out in the cards that way.
Mm.
But guess what? That doesn't minimize my identity as a man. And it's funny how I've noticed in ministry at church, as a ordained support and recovery pastor now, that a lot of younger people want to come and talk to me. Weird. You know what I mean? But guess what?
So.
They're seeking authenticity, confidence, conversations, and strength to be guided. And I had one of those conversations just today, and it's such an honor. Like, wow, I'm the old man, you're the young person. Please teach me, grasshopper. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But that's the real strength. And, my identity in Christ is in Christ. And yeah, I just love Jesus. And I want people to, when I leave this earth down the road, I hope a long time ago, down the road, I just want people to know, all they have to remember about me is there's a man that loved Jesus and helped others to do the same.
Amen to that. Well, it has been an honor, Rick, and I'm very thankful that I get to know you. And one of the things we do like to ask is, if for someone who's listening out there, if they haven't dealt with, if they've had these issues, but they've never talked about them, they've never brought them up, what would you want them to know? What would you tell them?
I would recognize the difficulty, first of all. Secondly, I would want to let them know that they are valued. Thirdly, I would want them to take a risk, even a tiny step, just a tiny step, whether that's a friend, a trusted church leader, a counselor, a peer counselor, a coach, a place like Husband Material, where they can just begin to trust someone to begin to get what they are going through, just begin to open up just a little bit. I believe that if they can start that, guess what happens? The wave comes through, right? But it's a matter of trusting. I had issues with trust all my life. Find that place, find that entity, find that ministry, find that leader, find that mentor, find that trusted friend to begin that conversation.
Love that.
Trust yourself, trust the process, and trust the processor.
Thank you.
So good. So good.
Thank you. So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
God, we come to you. Thank you for this opportunity today to share. Thank you for the trust I have in the friendship investment with Kevin and Lori. I ask that you use any words that I share today to open up opportunities of healing, of freedom, the reality of your love and your care and your concern for people. There are hurting people all around us. We need you. Hurting people need us. Help us to open those doors and those windows for people to walk through. Mm-hmm. Help us to be willing, because it's not about us. Help us to continue to desire to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Thank you for saving my life. Again, may my words encourage even one today that real life change is possible, and that, God, you really are an incredible God who loves us in all of our pain, suffering, and struggle. In Jesus' name.
Father, I thank you for all your blessings, and I thank you especially for the work that Rick is doing and the people he is reaching, and the work you are doing in Rick's life, and how you have saved his life, literally saved his life. Lord, and I thank you for how you teach us that you want us to be a burden. You want us to burden you with our anger, our pain, our fears, our issues. You want us to burden you, Lord, because you want to carry that load for us, and so that when you heal us, we can lead others to healing, to your healing, Lord. I just thank you for the miracles of your healing and the blessings you've given Rick and all those who he has touched with his life, Lord. I pray that you would continue to use him and bless those that he is working with. And Lord, I just pray for anyone listening that they would be blessed by you, to know that you love them just the way that they are, and that you want to hear their hurt, their pain, and even their anger towards you, that you want that, and that you want to heal them and help them through this journey. In your name I pray.
And Father, that person that's in their comfort zone right now, which is really a danger zone, or they want to reach out, they want to share, they know they're hurting and they want healing and they're just scared, Lord. Just give them the courage to take that, like Rick said, baby step. Take that one step, find that one person where they can just share a little. They can start to open that door. Father, I pray that they will face their fears and stretch and get the help. And again, we can't do it alone. And if we're sitting in our comfort zone all by ourselves and think we're doing great, we're not, because we're alone. And so often we think that we're managing and our behavior is hurting others. And so, Father, that person that knows that it's time, that you will give them the courage, the strength, the wisdom, open the door, show them where to go, who to talk to, because you're so good at that, God. And I just pray for healing. I pray for not only trust the process, but the processor. And I just pray that this new journey that the person's going on, that they will feel supported and loved, knowing they can reach out to any of us, and that there is help, there is support, and they are not alone. And I just thank you so much. And like Rick said, talking to someone with lived experience who's been there, done that, can really add value and comfort. And I just pray that you'll help us all to heal and to keep digging, Lord. When we think we're healed, we think we're done, we know there's going to be another go around, and give us the courage, the wisdom, and the strength to keep digging, keep learning, keep growing. In your son's holy name, amen.
Amen.